website. You can watch it and rewatch it if you'd like. We then produce minutes after each planning commission meeting, and they're posted on the village. So it's all very transparent and public. The planning commission serves at the pleasure of the mayor. There are 5 members. We're nominated for 3 years. And I would like to welcome a few celebrities today. We have Scott Russell, the village administrator, all the way in the back. We have a journalist who just joined Newsday, Alec Lewis. Welcome, Alec. We have a Southampton trustee, Mr. McLaughlin. Hello, hi. We have, whom do I see? Susan Steinhardt. We have Alex Wallach around here. And whom else do I recognize? Ed Simeoni, trustee. Rob Coburn, trustee. Mayor Manger by Zoom. We have Christian Picot, the co-chair of the Planning Commission by Zoom. Michael Anderson on my left, and my name is Michel Brogard. I'm co-chair of the Planning Commission. So welcome everybody. And to start, we're all going to stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting, which took place on the 12th of September. Do I have somebody to back me up? Second. Anybody opposed? Nobody opposed? It's approved. Thank you. And then we recently posted on the village website the 12 dates of the upcoming Planning Commission meetings for 2026. So you can already put all of them in your calendar at 3 p.m. on Fridays every month during 2026 and a couple more in 2025. I'd like to make a motion to approve the dates of the upcoming Planning Commission meetings.
I'll
Michael?
make that too.
Thank you. Anybody opposed? Nobody? It's approved. Good. Item number 5, Public Safety Wireless Tower. I'll make this update. You know, we've been working on this project for more than 2 years. Mayor Manger has been very diligent in trying to get this. You know, it's a safety issue. You know that the police department, the fire department, and the ambulance depends on having good communications, not only cellular coverage, but also the two-way beepers and walkie-talkie who work on a completely separate system, Motorola. And we have gone through a long public process of getting to choose a builder for the tower, finding the place, the propagation maps. It's been a very, very long and public process. If you're interested, it's all recorded and available on the website. And we have gone through all the land boards, the planning board, the ZBA, and the architectural board. We've gone in front of them several times each, and we have finally gotten all the approvals. And now Diamond Communications, the builder of the tower, is going to finalize the building permit, which will be then reviewed by the building department here in the village. And hopefully they start making the tower sometimes in November, December, and they probably will build it sometimes in January, February, right between the movie theater parking lot and right behind the Windmill Lane fire station. It's a tall tower, 125 feet tall. Hopefully we'll get all 3 carriers, namely AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. And on the top, we'll get the Motorola equipment. The Motorola equipment sits there for free, but the 3 carriers will pay to Diamond Communications a monthly rent and split that with the village. It's a 20-year deal. The company, Diamond Communications, is paying to erect the tower and all the legal fees that goes with it, and sending an upfront check to the village. So it's a good deal for the village. It's not particularly elegant to have a tower right there, but as you know, it's a question of safety and public safety. So This is the update on the tower. Next, we have, do I see Jeannie?
I'm here. I'm just having major technical difficulties, so I can talk, but you can't see me.
Okay, Jeannie, we hear you loud and clear. So if you could give us a quick update on the Southampton Village Partnership.
Sure. So Roy Stevenson is going to be meeting with the USGA on Tuesday. Hopefully, we can determine, what they have expressed in terms of what they can do to support funding or sponsoring something that will get us to the next step, which is to develop a website. Nancy Kane is going to be reaching out to the various cultural organizations, so we can put together a meeting, hopefully in the next 10 days. But I think that there's progress. We have a couple of new members, and I think that this will move forward quickly once we all meet.
Great. Well, thank you, Jeannie. Okay. And now we move to item number 7 on the agenda, which is the water tank project. So just a little introduction. Because people irrigate during the summer, very often in the morning, our water tower on Prospect is very low. The level gets low. And if it's too low and there's a fire, you cannot fill the fire trucks. So we do need to do something about having more water in the tank, in the system. So SCWA and the village and the town are working in partnership under the direction of Jacob Yahian, who is on Zoom and is a member of the Planning Commission, has been working on it for a year. And Jacob, if you could explain to the public where it's going to be, what it's going to do, how big, how much money, etc. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. We've had a collaborative discussion and effort with the Suffolk County Water Authority to add an additional 2 million gallon storage in our North Maggie Street, whereas they will undertake the role of engineering construction along with the cost. And once we agree and bifurcate the necessary layout of the various piping pathway with the township, of which that meeting has taken place today with the head of co-operations of Suffolk County Water Authority and the chief engineer, they will come back to us on the agreed layouts of passageway and then further solidify with an agreement between ourselves, our village and the township on the egress needed, and give the village and part of the township the benefit of having additional water storage capacity and mitigating any kind of water pressure risk during peak usage during the summer months. So it's been a very positive collaboration. We did visit our site in North Maggie with the mayor and their chief engineer and with Scott. We even did a site tour of one of their projects in the North Fork, and it's been a very proactive, positive collaboration so far. So we're hopefully going to have updates from the township conversation next week, and I will present that to the mayor's office and to the trustees and the planning commission associates.
Jacob, can you just speak a little bit about the scale of the project, the cost of the project?
Well, we haven't done an approximation cost, hard and soft cost yet. In engineering, we call that a ROM. I think Tim and Joe, Tim, who is the chief engineer, will be in a better position once we understand the necessary pipe layout and the various wellhead layouts as well. Then I think we can start putting pencil to paper and figuring out the hard and soft cost and area analysis needed for the storage tank. Now, the way it'll work, some of us did go look at a North Fork layout. It'll be partial above grade and partial below grade, but with very little visual obstruction It's actually fairly straightforward and elegantly designed. But I don't have an approximation of cost, but that cost will be undertaken by the Suffolk County Water Authority's approved budget that they have.
Not the village. Great, super. Thank you
Not the
very
village.
much, Jacob. The next item is tree lighting remediation program. As you know, our trees have suffered from being encircled by the Christmas lights. Michael?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to see as many people here as we have in this room today. I think I've sat on this board for 7 years now, and I think if we have 2 or 3 people come, it's a lot. So I'm very happy that you're all here to hear what we have to say, different avenues that we've been working on. And I know everybody's here for workforce housing, but just a few issues. I don't know if anybody's aware, we do have deer hunting season started October 1st. We do have a program in the village that we've had now, this is our 3rd year. Unfortunately, Columbus Day weekend, which is a big weekend for hunting, was a washout. But we still managed to take 11 does and 1 buck. So we've started so far this year pretty successful. As usual, as what I say at every meeting is we're only as good or as successful as the amount of properties that we have. I think we have 34 resident properties that people allow Suffolk County Deer Management to hunt on, and we're always looking for more. It's a huge issue, but this is our 3rd or 4th year that we've been doing it, so we've been quite successful in culling the herd.
Can you remind people how many per year and how you kill them?
It's a bow hunting season. I don't know if people are aware, but it's bow hunting. Tree stands, we always shoot downward. We never shoot outward. It's all done by state legislation and by law. The village police have been in touch. We've been in touch with them. We've had plenty of meetings with them. Last year, well, the first year it was 110 deer that we were able to cull. And the second year, last year, we got approximately 115. But they're still out there. I see them running in our neighborhood. It's a very dangerous issue that we have as far as the disease that they carry, the traffic accidents that they cause, and destruction of private property, which is a huge issue. So the village board and the mayors really have done a great job in allowing this program to go forward. And we're doing fairly well. As far as the tree committee goes, I'm not a member of the tree committee, but I am on the liaison between the tree committee and the planning commission. We instituted Tree USA about 3 or 4 years ago. We became a member. We have monthly meetings between the tree committee and, we have Steve Phillips from Public Works attend. It's very well done. 2 of the action items that we're working on right now are the Christmas lights, or the lights, I should say, on the village trees. They're actually damaging and killing a lot of them. And we made a presentation, the tree committee made a presentation to the board about 2 months ago. And we're asking for a resolution to find out who's actually responsible for the lights, and if we could, whether it be the village or the store owners or whoever puts them up, and if we could have a clear understanding as to when we put the lights up and when we take them down. A lot of people, store owners, and even the village, we put the lights up and never take them down. And it just, after so many years, it's actually killing the trees. So hopefully the board will come up with some sort of resolution in the near future. One other thing is that we've been planting a lot of trees in the village the last couple of years under Mayor Manger. I think it's been 200 last year. The year before that, it was 190. But I'm after him about not only planting these trees, but we need a clear street management program that the village needs to take care of the trees that are here. I think it's a huge issue. Right now, we're in the process of coming up with a comprehensive plan for that management plan. That's
Great.
all I have.
Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. And then we jump to item number 9. Christian Picot is going to talk to us a little bit about the battery electric legislation. Christian?
Good afternoon, everybody. Let's talk about BESS. This is a battery energy storage system. I think we all remember in this room the issues that the township had when trying to install or approve an installation of a 100-megawatt facility in Hampton Bays near the canal between the railroad and County Road or the Highway 27. Since then, the township has redone their code, tiered the maximum capacity, tier 1, tier 2. Tier 2 is actually capped now at 5 megawatt. The mayor has asked us to look at this and perhaps propose also for the village some form of legislation to protect the village from unwanted battery energy system that might be put in place. We met with Alex Wallach to look at the light industrial zone and see what are some of the lots, setbacks, and how we could articulate this legislation. But I would think that at this point, so that there's no surprise, what I will do is put a deck of slides together on the topic and present it to the Board of Trustees before we start working on any legislation to make sure that everybody is on board in terms of what the issues are and how we're going to resolve them, what the proposal would be before we start drafting. Thank you, Bill, for being on this call. At some point next week, we'll discuss if there is a time when you guys would like me to come and present to your board the best. I'm nothing further on that. As I said, we've got pretty much all the information we need. We got the research, it's done. I'd like to present it to the board and make sure that there is a majority that wants to move forward for it. It will require some reasonable amount of legislative work, but it's not rocket science. And certainly the township has done finally a great job with a new piece of how they wrote it in Q1 of this year, and it's a lot better than it was originally. So I have nothing further on that. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you for co-chairing this meeting today. I'm sorry I couldn't meet with all of you this evening.
Thank you, Christian.
Afternoon.
Christian, before you sign off, because I know you have another meeting, any comments on the wireless tower or on the water tank or on the trees or any other subject that were discussed so far?
I think the commission, which has been slimmed down to 5 people, is doing an enormous job, and the way we've restructured it is one, each team member has a project responsibility. So for instance, Michael Anderson is responsible for the relationship with Suffolk County Deer Management and the trees. You, Michelle, have spearheaded and taken over and done a great job on the cell tower. We have Jacob, who's working with SCWA on an important infrastructure project, a 2 million gallon tank in North McGee side. So, and then of course, Jeannie is acting as liaison between the towns. So we're doing a better job in understanding what the town is working on upstream as opposed to being reactive. So that's a change. And we've also have Jeannie working with the SVP, Southampton Village Partnership. So what I want people to understand, and I am working now on the best. These are all initiatives that the Planning Commission has put together. It's a great team. Everybody's got their responsibility, and it really works well. And I want to thank everybody for all the work that they're doing. It's really well organized, and we're getting stuff done.
Thank you. Thank you, Christian. Before we go to the workforce housing, I wanted to ask Bill. Bill, do you have any comments or thoughts on what has been discussed in the past 20 minutes?
No, I don't think so. I appreciate all your efforts on all these different topics. And the reason why we're looking at the BESS is because there have been instances of BESS installations that have had fires that have been quite detrimental to the community. So we want to ensure that we're safeguarding the village from that type of situation. So that's why we're looking at that. I just thought I wanted to explain why we're looking at this BESS legislation. And as Christian said, the town has already done something to cover the township, but we want to make sure that we are covered also in the village. So I have nothing else to add at this point. Thank you,
Great.
Michelle.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, the next agenda item is discussion on workforce housing. I suggest that we start by listening to a few experts on the subject, and maybe we can start with Kara. Kara, how long do you need to give us an overview of what you do? And is it 5 minutes? Is it 10 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, perfect. Okay, Kara, for 5 minutes. Yes, yes, go there, and please have the mic right in front of your mouth, because if you leave 2 inches, then it doesn't work, and you're not recorded. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
And maybe Michelle just introduce Kara back to those that may not know her.
That's a very good idea. Actually, Kara, you do it better than me.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kara Back. I am the Director of Housing and Community Development and Community Services for the town of Southampton. Part of my responsibilities is managing the new Community Housing Fund. And we have Jay Deasing here with us today, who is a member of the board. And the Community Housing Fund was enacted in 2022 by the voters of the town of Southampton. And as you mentioned earlier today, that you have such a good amount of audience members here today. So everyone sees that affordable housing is a big issue now out here. And the voters recognized that in 2022, and they voted in a 0.5% tax on real estate transactions. That tax goes into a fund called the Community Housing Fund, and that fund is to be used to further affordable housing out here. So in managing the Community Housing Fund, some of my responsibilities were coming up with some programs with what the money can be used for. The New York State legislation kind of gave a broad, set forth some broad language about what that money can be used for. It can be used to provide housing for sale, to provide affordable housing for rent. It can be used to provide affordable housing for first-time home buyers. So what I did when I first came in as director is I started to kind of narrow that down and come up with some parameters and criteria for what that money could be used for. So the town of Southampton has, we've collected about $40 million since the inception of this fund. We have, the town board has authorized 130 housing units now. That's what they've approved at this point. We have in the pipeline many, many other units, but right now we have approved 130 units. All of that $40 million has been used. We have about $4 million that that is not reserved yet. So we're putting it to good use. So some of the programs that we have a first-time homebuyers down payment assistance program. So the town will give, usually when you're a first-time homebuyer, you need to have at least 5% down. That's what it takes to get a Sony Mae mortgage. You need a 5% down. The town will give 3% of that 5%, so most of the down payment, in a loan to a first-time home buyer. It's a 0% interest loan that is only paid back at the time you sell the property or you do a cash out refinance. So it's a pretty good, a pretty good program. Right now, the limitations for a home is $1.7 million. So a first-time home buyer can purchase a home that costs up to $1.7 million. And the income cap for a family of 3 is $218,000 to qualify for that. So just to give an example, if somebody's buying $1 million house, CHF can come in with $30,000 to give them towards buying that home. We like the home buyer to come in with 2% of their own funds to have some of their own skin in the game. So that's a pretty terrific program, and we've had some good response to that. We have another program called the Accessory Apartment Program, CHF ADU program. Right now, we're providing loans, again, 0% interest, it's a 20-year loan, up to $125,000 for somebody who wants to build an ADU or an accessory dwelling unit on their property. We require that both the homeowner and the tenant occupy the property as their primary residence. The tenant's income must be at or below 130% of the area median income. For one person, that's about $150,000, so it's pretty high. And we do limit the rents to what we call an affordable rent. For a studio, that's $2,309. That's what it's capped at. For a one-bedroom, it's $2,639, and for a two-bedroom, it's $2,969. And that's that is a loan, so the homeowner has to pay that back over a period of 20 years. It's a little bit more than $500 a month, so the homeowner still can collect a good amount in rent on that. We do have a program for developers where we will help to subsidize the development of properties. The CHF Advisory Board has used a metric of about $250,000 per unit to help a developer build affordable housing within the township. Those are the programs now that have been doing very well and have taken off, and we're working together with the Town of Southampton Housing Authority to bring in a good amount of these housing units. And I think Curtis is here. He's the director of the Town of Southampton Housing Department, and Town of Southampton Housing Authority, and he will talk to you a little bit about some of those projects.
Let's hold off the question until other people come. But one quick one.
Sure.
You said you collected 40 million since 2022. That's about what, 12 million a year ish?
Yeah, so we're running about $1 million a month.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So there are a lot of questions for you, but so please stay tuned. Curtis, do you want to give us a few minutes? How much time do you want?
5 minutes.
5 minutes is great.
I probably have the same 5 minutes to you. That's okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a little nostalgic for me because the last time I was in this room, I was sitting up there in the middle. 13 years as ARB chair for Southampton Village. So It's nice to be back at home. I'm Curtis Highsmith. I'm the executive director for the Town of Southampton Housing Authority. People always ask, what's the difference between community housing and development and the housing authority? Well, the community housing and development tries to find ways and policies and funding to allow us to build and construct and create more units of housing along with programs. We build it. The Housing Authority, we built the first 3 affordable units in Southampton Village on Bailey Road. I have here my chair of my board, Bonnie Cannon, who at the time was actually a trustee for the Village of Southampton, was very instrumental to make sure we received those parcels from Suffolk County. That was under the 72H program. 72H was a program that is a program that Suffolk County utilizes to repurpose foreclosed parcels and utilizes it for affordable housing. And we've been able to benefit from a number of those units through the course of the last 13 years. The Housing Authority has built approximately close to 30 single-family homes for first-time home buyers. We have built a number of rental units. We built the first two affordable housing, 100% affordable housing communities. That's Sandy Hollow and Spionk. That's east of the canal as well as west of canal. We have a 37-unit senior complex in Hampton Bays. And right now, with the addition of the Community Housing Fund, we have a number of units that will come to fruition over the next few years or so. Biggest concern, it's the same concern the village of Southampton is going to have, and that's how do you get it across the finish line? There's no provisions right now that allow these projects to really move forward without having some type of either relief or zoning change or creating some policy that will allow it to be more streamlined. And that's been kind of the difficulty in creating more number of units of housing throughout Southampton town. Most of the projects that we have, or all of the projects that we've had, requires some form of relief, whether a zoning change, or we had to increase our number of units in order for us to be able to compete in whether it be New York State or county funding. Challenges are we are always operating in competition with every housing agency in New York State for a lot of funding. So when we're going for some of these programs, especially through the state, we're competing against agencies that are in New York City, upstate New York, where they have 200 units of housing, maybe even Brookhaven Town or Islip Town, where they have 100 to 200 numbers of units of housing. We're usually capped out at 30. So when you're competing against individuals that have a larger impact in terms of cost per construction, it's difficult to be awarded those projects. That's the reason why Sandy Hollow and Spionk had to be combined as one project in order for us to get New York State funding for 66 total units. And that was the smallest number of units in that funding cycle, but the largest award in all of New York State. So, we have some ideas. I want to, we'll come back and forth, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions to be asked. But I would really like to sit down with the village of Southampton, with the constituents, with the community who actually are the individuals that are going to be impacted by the change or shifts within Southampton Village. Just a little history. Southampton Village, I say between the end of 1800s to the beginning of 1900s, was a multi-generational community. There was no single standing home individuals. It usually would be husband and wife, children, and mom and dad were living with you. That was the heart of Southampton Village during that time. Then the transition of the railroad came and the demographic increased. And then you had a different format where individuals, single homes, single individuals had to find housing. So Southampton Village, over periods of time, have had a renaissance of change of housing use and needs. We're in that transition now. We need to be able to find reasonable, affordable units of housing for our workforce, for our medical emergency personnel. We need to find creative ways to streamline that process because it gets very expensive when you have to go back and forth, changing the style, reducing the number of units, going back and forth to the health department, engineers and architects and surveyors. Each time that we have to come before you with a different plan, it costs money. That's all included in the pre-development costs. That affects our ability to bring these programs over the finish line. So we got to come up with a way where we can try to navigate this a little bit better, and which is sensitive to the community, but overall being able to actually execute on our plan.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Curtis. Thank you very much. Jay, do you want to speak for a few minutes?
Well, maybe as a village resident, because I think
You have so many hats, I don't know exactly what you are today, but yes.
So I think, in the village, we have so many additional challenges. First of all, most of our land has already been developed, so we don't have a sizable parcels that might be available to develop for community housing. Our housing is very expensive, so it's difficult to work these projects and get the state to step up for the kind of numbers that we need in the village. And I think that our committee would probably recognize that something in Southampton Village might need more than $250,000 per unit to entice a developer to come in and consider actually completing an affordable, or I call it community housing, because the problem we have here is not just sort of low income or what we would say is affordable housing. We've kind of gutted our community. And if you look at Southampton Village right now, only 28% of the tax bills get sent to an address in the village. So that tells you that 72% of the people don't really live here. And we can't maintain, we have a sustainability problem. We talked about a sustainability committee, and they've done wonderful things with all sorts of resources, but not human resources. We didn't sustain our human resources in the village. And so there are very few people who live and work here in the village because of the economics. And so I think that one of the things that we need to do is recognize that, and then also get over the fact that we might have developers who come in, and if they do a great job with affordable housing and they get subsidies from us, they make money. They're entitled to make money. We allow spec developers to make millions of dollars with every house that they build, and we have no problem with that. But when it comes to an affordable housing project or a community housing project, we say, oh, gee, we don't want this guy to make money. How are you going to get people to do this? They're not going to do it. So we have to change our thinking about how we entice people to come in and do affordable housing. And I think the village might think about tax abatements for the taxes on these properties. They might have to outright purchase some of them. I mean, right now we've got the Southampton Press on Windmill Lane, which is 1.1 acres, would be a fabulous property for 12 to 15 units of affordable housing. We have the old John Ducks, which I think is almost 1.5 acres, and that would be another great site. But if we don't act quickly, these sites are going to be gone. Somebody is going to step in, and they'll turn it into 6 luxury condos. And that goes to another topic. We need to work on our zoning, because we don't need any more luxury housing in Southampton Village. In fact, we need to discourage it, and I think we need to, you can't prohibit someone from fixing up their home, but we shouldn't be allowing people to, carve up properties and do 4 or 5 luxury housing units. We can't afford it. We're choking with the problems we're having right now with our housing. And ask the hospital, 95% of their employees are coming from east or west of the canal. And so imagine in a snowstorm, in a hurricane, you're not going to have anybody who can staff our hospital. So I think we've got some really significant problems, but I'm hoping that with great people like Kara, Curtis, Bonnie, all of you here, it's something that people are starting to realize how important it is. And I think community housing has got to be our real focus. And another step, you're getting me going on my crazy tangent, but another step would be at some point, how much farmland is there left? I think what we need to do is maybe think about that allocation between housing and farmland preservation. And do we really need 2% to go for farmland, which nobody can enjoy when you can't live here? I mean, you're just speeding by on your way out of the Hamptons for most of the people who work here. So what we might need to start to do is look for more ways to get money so we can help fund these projects. I think it's really critical. So thank you for your time and for your initiative.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker will be Rob. Do you want to explain a little bit what the situation is before we take questions? Yeah, we'll take questions when all the speakers are gone.
But I'm one of the board, I'm the board chair, so since he was allowed, the board member from this, he was allowed, I would like to speak as the
Okay.
board chair.
Okay, do you want to speak before Rob?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Bonnie Cannon, and I am a resident of Southampton Village. I'm also the chairwoman for the Town of Southampton's Housing Authority, and I have been the chairwoman for the Town of Southampton's Housing Authority, I think, for the past 15 years. So you're speaking to someone that has been in this fight and been dealing with this challenge for many, many years. What I wanted to say for the village as well, as you all know, some of you may not know that I am also a past trustee of the Village of Southampton, who has been on the trustee board for doing a 3 terms for 6 years as
Thank
well.
you.
And I also was a member of your planning commission also when it first started, when you looked at your comprehensive plan. Okay, so what I want to say is that this issue is very important. It's wonderful to see all of you here, and everybody is on board now to know that this is an issue that we have. But what I will say is that you have the A team that is sitting right here. You have Kara Back, who has come on board and teamed with Curtis Highsmith from the Town of Southampton Housing Authority. We have a very good relationship with the different entities to need to make this happen. And as Curtis has said, we would love to sit down and really make a difference and make an impact here in the village. All of the things that Jay has said, I agree with it, and I rubber stamp that. What I want to say is that we need to sit down, and we have a saying in the Town of Southampton Housing Authority, while everyone else is talking, we're building. Our track record shows that, and Curtis did not go into the deep expansion of what it is that we're doing along with the Town of Southampton and what we have built. He didn't go into that. Also, do not exclude rentals, because of the fact that while we have to just be very particular about who the rentals are going for. Because if we remember when we were coming up, that young family, they had to rent first before they were able to actually be able to afford a house. So we need to look at rental units and don't exclude rental units. She talked about the 3%. But we also need to look at the 3%. We also look at a way so that we can also subsidize that other 2%, so that there is no down payment that an individual has to do and that can be subsidized. So all I wanted to say to everyone here, they're going to talk. I have to leave because I have another event, but this was important for me to be here because I think it was great that we are having this discussion, but I want to make sure that we are just not discussing, but that we move forward. And as the Town of Southampton and the Housing Authority has done for the past 15 or so years, is that we just don't talk, but that we execute and we make something really happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Bonnie.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you very much. Rob, do you want to give us a little
Sure.
explanation of where we stand today
Yeah.
as far as the code and the village?
That's a tough act to follow. All of these are. While I'm getting this up, I do want to just make a comment, because about 14 or 15 years ago, I was sitting as a resident in the back of this room, and it wasn't a discussion on workforce housing, but the topic came up. I think it was called either affordable or subsidized housing at the time. And as the topic came up, I could see from the back of the room, a full room like this, all the heads, people's eyes went down and the heads were shaking back and forth. We don't need affordable housing. Boy, what a problem. Then a month and a half ago, I was sitting up here as a trustee, and we were discussing traffic. We weren't even discussing housing. But 3 or 4 people who made comments said, you know, these are all our poor workers who, because they can't live here, have to commute. We need workforce housing. And the 3 or 4 times that workforce housing was mentioned, every head in the room was going up and down. Everyone. And it was a broad cross-section of the village. So it's nice to see, unfortunately under some duress, that we've all come to realize what Jay has realized, which is that we've not paid attention to the needs of the community, and we've let luxury housing, which is fine, it's a market thing, and many people enjoy it, but dominate and basically take out our workforce. So just wanted to say that. Let me give, as best as I can, a quick overview on current code. And here we go. This is really, really basic, so bear with me. But let me pop down, I hope. It's not letting me do it for some reason. There we go. Okay, so currently in Southampton Village, we actually, I didn't know this until a couple months ago, we have a workforce housing trust fund. And it was created 17 years ago. And it has about $490,000 in it. It's not clear that the back end and the resolutions necessary to make this money effective and usable has been completed, but there's money in there. And Mayor Manger and others, I think we should talk about ways that we can use that or throw that into a kitty for exclusive use in Southampton Village under the aegis maybe of the Community Housing Fund. But it does exist. There was one payment made to it related to Beechwood Latch, the old village latch. It was a payment in lieu of creating units there. So we do have that trust fund. And we have two parts of the code, another part of the code that's maybe relevant here. We did create an accessory apartments code in 2021, was it 22? It says here, 2021. And it's intended to meet the needs of small households and to promote and encourage affordable housing. Other municipalities have done a version of this. New York State is very eager to promote and encourage municipalities to create code that allows what they refer to generically as additional dwelling units, ADUs, and this is a form of that. Ours has some limitations. It's not been taken up. I don't believe there's been any development in Southampton Village under this Chapter 116, Article 9 to date. It's only been a few years, but it has been a few years. And there are some real limitations. We don't allow any of these dwelling units to be in an accessory structure. It has to be in the primary structure. There can't be any obvious physical changes to the house in terms of doors or stairs or electric meters or other things that indicate a second unit. And then there are a lot of sort of subjective sort of neighborhood considerations that are in the code that allow the ZBA, which reviews these applications, to give a reason to say no. I'm not saying that's why they were put in there, but there are a lot of conditions to doing that. So, and that may be some of the reason why it hasn't been taken up to date. It's frankly a little bit restrictive relative to some other municipalities. It's not our code, but all of us here on Long Island already are subject to the New York State Long Island Workforce Housing Act. That requires any new subdivision or any new construction multifamily housing development to set aside 10% of their units for workforce housing anywhere on Long Island. It's an overlay from New York State to all the zoning codes. So that's a baseline for right now. Anyone who wanted to come into the village and say, we want to build 8 units, they're going to say, hey, guess what? 10% of 8 is 0.8. You got to put 1 unit aside. They're going to round up. You got to put 1 unit aside for workforce housing. So that's the status for Southampton Village right now, what we're subject to. I'm trying to be very brief on this. Let me just go a little bit into what some other municipalities do. I'm not a lawyer, so this is a layman's reading. East Hampton Village, which in some ways may be most comparable, they at this point only have one section of code that references workforce housing, and it's provisional, I think, in anticipation of other changes. And it says if there's a workforce housing development within 500 feet of a transportation center, then they can waive the parking requirements. But they don't have the code to incentivize the workforce housing at this point. And I've not been able to reach someone to know whether that's in the works in East Hampton Village. I'll just stay on East Hampton Village and say, with respect to additional dwelling units, they're a little more lenient than we are. They allow ADUs in many historic buildings, and they also allow it on any property that's greater than 60,000 square feet. The occupancy can be in a detached unit in East Hampton Village, meaning it can be in a garage, but I believe you're limited to one accessory structure as you are in East Hampton Town. And the occupancy is limited to family, guests, and domestic employees. So it actually isn't really for the larger workforce, even someone locally in East Hampton Village. It's an additional dwelling unit for someone who works on the property as a nanny, as a chef, as a caretaker, senior health aide, that sort of thing. Sag Harbor Village. With respect to workforce housing, they did something similar to what Mayor Manger and the board has been considering here for the village, which is to provide a density bonus. And their density bonus actually is just in compliance with this Long Island Workforce Housing Act. It says that if you set aside at least 10% then you're eligible for a density bonus, but 10% or more of your project has to be for workforce housing, and you have to provide land if you're not going to build the units on your own site, and you have to make a payment of 2 times the median household income. So it's very clear, but it's a little more flexible in certain ways in terms of where it can happen. Basically, it can happen anywhere in the village. This has been in place now for, help me out, 16 or 17 years. They've not had a single unit developed under this code. So just to keep in mind. They don't have a specific code on accessory dwelling units. They have some more ability in their code to do apartments on certain properties, but it's not specifically designed for what we would think of as additional dwelling units, and doesn't reference workforce housing or income subsidized programs or affiliations at this point. And I'm looking at some of the experts here to make sure that they're not aware that I'm missing something entirely.
116, I think it's 116-1, the multifamily, almost like a PDD. You do have a zoning change process, which you can look into possibly for, but it doesn't give a number of units.
Doesn't give a number of units.
It's a mechanism by which, almost like what the town does, it allows you to, the village board, to look at the project to see if it's viable, and then elect to consider to go to planning. So that's the multifamily, almost PDD.
Okay. I'm going to skip over Southampton Town for a moment, just go to East Hampton Town. I'll come back on the right side of the screen for those who can see it. The East Hampton Town does have a community housing opportunity fund. It's similar to Southampton Village. I'm not sure why I said that, but similar to Southampton Town, I think I meant there. There's no other specific zoning provisions, however, with respect to workforce housing. And then with respect to additional dwelling units, they allow them in owner-occupied primary structures or accessory structures. Both the owner of the house and the tenant in the additional unit must be their primary structures. And they limit them, interestingly enough, to 40 such units within any school district, which is one of those considerations that comes along as we start to focus in what burdens are we placing on other infrastructure. And that's how they've taken account of at least the burden on the school infrastructure. Southampton Town has the most extensive workforce housing. It's hard to summarize in one little box. I would encourage people to see it. Most of these code sections are 2 or 3 pages. Southampton Town's is about 25 pages. And they go, and it's called community housing, as Jay referenced. It references income subsidization. It references first-time buyers. I think at some point it references senior or elderly and senior. And it's very comprehensive. It's very hard to summarize, but it is it doesn't give allow a lot of things as of right, really anything as of right. But it clarifies, to someone else, to Curtis, to your point, it clarifies the parameters and the pathways. And a read through it by even a layperson, especially a lawyer, will tell an owner or a developer pretty clearly what they can do. And it's really clearly meant to encourage the development of workforce housing in as many ways as possible. Their additional dwelling unit basically allows ADUs in owner-occupied primary structures as well in Southampton Town. And I think, as you heard, there's also a program through Community Housing Fund to subsidize the renovation or creation of that unit within that primary structure. So that's just a very brief overview of what
Rob.
people are doing
Very
nearby.
helpful. Thank you. Okay, I wanted to ask Mayor Manger if you wanted to intervene and share your thoughts on the subject. Bill, do you have any thoughts on the presentations we heard so far? You're on mute.
On mute, Bill.
Well, yeah, I think they've been very good presentations. I appreciate the folks that you were able to get to come today to speak about this issue, because it is very important, obviously. And I think, you know, what the village is trying to do is to find a location in the village where this really would work. And again, in consultation with BFJ, who were the consultants who did our comprehensive master plan and the update, again, just a few years ago, they pointed out the fact that, again, the zoning in the village had been done in the 1970s, the overall zoning. And the world has changed since then, and we don't require as much office space in the village with people working from home and being able to Zoom like I am right now. You don't have to be in a specific office to do that. So again, it was thought that the office districts in the village were being actually underutilized and could be used for workforce housing. They're on main arteries, North Sea Road and Hampton Road. Again, both close to the village center, so you could actually walk to the village if you wished. Or if you were, for example, a teacher at one of the schools on Hampton Road, the elementary, intermediate, or high school, again, you would even in fact be able to walk to work, which would negate you having to take a car every day to drive a short distance down Hampton Road. And so working with BFJ, we thought that made a lot of sense. And then we thought, well, how can we entice people to come and want to create workforce housing in these areas? So at the time that we first proposed this new language, we were talking about 25% of the units would have to be towards workforce housing. And again, always rounding up if there was a discrepancy. So again, we saw what the county was mandating or the state was mandating, 10%. And we did that, went 2.5 times above that to 25%. But then we obviously heard from some folks, and Bonnie Cannon, who was here this afternoon, she talked about, maybe we could increase that to 50%. So I did go and, speak to BFJ about that. They saw no problem with that. I then went and spoke to the village attorney. She has redrafted the proposal, so it does now say that for 50%, of any workforce, any development, you would have to have workforce housing included in that development. So again, we would be doing always half of the unit would be that, but we also have in there an enhancement. If you wanted to do 100% workforce housing, you actually get to increase the density on that specific site. So again, if you wanted to do something where it was 50-50, you could only get, X number of units. But if you wanted to get more units on that site, the only way in which you could do that would be to do the whole thing 100% workforce housing. So that seemed to be a good way to approach this. And again, providing some incentive to folks to come and want to do this in the heart of Southampton Village, realizing that the cost of land in the village is extremely high. Even in comparison just to the town of Southampton, the village has the highest real estate values. Everyone understands that. So I think this was a good place to start. I'm encouraged again by hearing the different programs that the town could help with, and Curtis could help with some specific sites in the village, because again, the proposal also says that you can only make a certain amount above AMI, which is the the mean income for the area. And I think we go up to, I believe it's 125% over that to still be considered a workforce, because certainly the village of Southampton, we realize the prices are a little bit higher. But also, in addition to that, with the AMI, we were also then capping what the rents that could be charged to the individual that was going to live in that unit. So again, it was a formula based off of what their income was, and that then would be a cap of where the rent would be set for somebody living in one of these units. So we did try to look at all different angles to make sure that it was going to be going to someone in need of workforce housing. And again, we have to check with the laws, but we would like to see if we can encourage people who actually work in the village of Southampton or are a member of one of the volunteer EMS, so a volunteer fireman or a volunteer ambulance worker. We wanted to be able to see if they could then afford to live in the village of Southampton when they are, again, supporting us with these volunteer efforts for our safety. So these were all proposals that were discussed, again, with BFJ. I think it's a good place to start. It's pointing out areas in the village that do seem to be underutilized and could withstand some additional housing. And again, that's really all I have to say at this point. And I think Bonnie's suggestion of raising the ratio 50-50, so 50% would have to be for workforce, and the other 50% could be market. Or again, if you want to do 100%, you would get an added bonus of density, meaning you could actually build more units on that site. But I think that's where I'd like to leave it at this point and see what others have to say in response.
Thank you, Bill, very much. And this proposal has not yet been voted by the trustees, correct?
No. It was only a proposal that we were looking at. Yeah.
Thank you.
There's been no vote taken at this point. And again, we were looking to get more feedback. So this is a wonderful venue in which to do just that.
Great. Bonnie, do you want to come to the mic?
I just need to make sure that I clarify, because I want to make sure that I clarify my statement, because I heard my name quite a bit, that Bonnie said. So let me make it clear as to what Bonnie is saying. Bonnie wants affordable housing wherever we can get it. If we can get 100% of affordable housing and still the developer is able to make a profit of some sort, that's what Bonnie's ultimate goal is. So what I'm saying is that basically maybe we should look at doing 100% and make let me finish, make that the goal. And then if that's not the goal, then if we're not able to do the 100%, then we scale it back down and make it capped maybe at 50%. So that's what I'm saying. So let's start high. And then if there's a cap that's needed, the cap should not be anything lower than the 50%.
Got it.
So I just want to make that clear.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you
thank
very
you.
much. Bill?
Yeah, no, I think we were saying essentially the same thing. Again, and as I said, the incentive to do 100% is that you actually get more units. So you get a denser development on a specific site if you do 100%. So that may be the incentive to someone to actually do that. But again, looking at the marketplace, there may also be some that say, well, look, I don't want to do as many units, but I'll do this if I can do it as a 50-50 split. So again, I think we need to give options to people out there so that, again, we can get some traction on this. I don't want to create something like in some of these other places where they really haven't been taken advantage of. We want to see something that actually gets some results for the village, because I think that's the most important thing, is we all want to see some additional workforce housing in the village of Southampton.
Great, thank you. And now we have the view from a developer who can help us understand his incentives.
Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Kirby Marcantonio. I'm from East Hampton, but I feel very much at home in this room and in this conversation, because for the past 4 years I've been working with the town of East Hampton as a private developer to do exactly what it is you're considering here, which is to establish workforce housing. To do that, we had to do quite a few things. And by the way, this is not a hope, a promise, a study. We have a 4-acre piece of property that we bought that was zoned for affordable housing, the only piece in the entire town of East Hampton that was zoned. And we currently are in the process of being approved for 47 2- and 3-bedroom townhouses, which will be expressly sold to businesses that need to house their employees. Now, as to how we got there, it's a bit of a long and tangled tale, but I'll try to keep it as short as I can. And we've met and discussed this in the past. 4 years ago, I came to the town, and I thought that affordable housing, of course, was an important enough issue so that, as the town has said, all hands on housing should include private developers. Now, I've lived in East Hampton since 1960. I got beat up by the Southampton football team in 1970. Trounced, I must say. And growing up in East Hampton, I've seen affordability, of course, become an issue across the board. However, I also run magazines in which many local businesses advertise. I've come to know them well. And even before COVID, we were hearing about the lack of housing for employees and how it was handicapping businesses, especially smaller businesses. Large businesses in my area, such as a Montauk Yacht Club, a Gurney's Inn, they have the resources to go out and secure housing, but smaller businesses don't. And of course, many businesses, such as Southampton Hospital, the town of East Hampton itself, the local teachers, firemen, policemen, you name it, are all under the same pressures. So since COVID happened and our basic cost of housing has gone up to year-round rentals that start at $7,000 a month, and the cheapest house in East Hampton up in Springs at $1.2 million, means that if you're not making about $250,000 a year, you ain't going to be in East Hampton. So I started talking 4 years ago with the town about workforce housing, a subset of the Affordable Housing Code. At the time, it was thought that this really was not an appropriate application of the code. Over the years, though, literally, we came to understand that the model of affordable housing is basically this. Someone has to be able to afford to pay for the housing. Housing in general, as we build it or as the town of East Hampton builds it, is about a $700,000 a unit proposition for average 2 and 3 bedroom units. It's especially expensive if you want to do it dense enough to make a difference, because you will be required to install a best package septic system, which is about a $2.5 million expenditure, and is essential if you want to have density of anything over 8 units per acre. So we had to do a variety of things. The first thing was we had to talk to the town about the fact that across Long Island, 12 units per acre is the density that Suffolk County Health Department approves with those systems. And East Hampton was stuck in a 1984 comprehensive code where they only allowed 8 units. Now, when you're buying property, and we have to buy property at about $1 million an acre, at 8 units per acre, it's a tough fit. As Curtis knows, at 12 units per acre, you got some room to maneuver. Now, that was the first challenge, upping it to 12 units per acre. The second challenge was, is workforce an affordable form of housing? Now, I'm not as familiar with Southampton's code, but our code is written with a very interesting introduction, which basically says an affordable housing complex can be owned or rented by any number of individuals or businesses. Those 3 words gave us workforce housing. Now, then we had to find a place where we could put something, because you could only put it in an affordable housing zone parcel. It turns out the town of East Hampton only had one. It's what some old timers around here may remember as the Stearns property in East Hampton, this very funky old department store that went out of business 40 years ago. It's 4 acres of property on the Montauk Highway, about a mile to the east of Town Hall. So we had the property, we had the zoning to 12, we had affordable housing. We're currently now in the, we're past the preliminary stage with the town, we're in with the health department. We expect about a year from now to be able to put a shovel in the ground and start construction. Anecdotally, 47 units sounds like a lot. It's nothing. 47 is a drop in a very big ocean of need. And you folks, I'm very happy to say, have said all the exact same things we've been saying for years, which is A, general affordability in my town is non-existent. B, essential workers can't live there. C, we have to import 80% of our workers from that-a-way. And guess what's happening that-a-way? Prices of housing that-a-way are going up just as fast as prices are going here. Hampton Bays, lovely part of Southampton, $800,000 to $900,000 to buy a house. Riverhead, lovely place to be, $700,000 to buy a house. Manorville, more. What's happened is that the cost of housing from Manhattan to Montauk has squeezed prices higher and higher and higher, to the point where Suffolk County has a median house price now of $742,000. A young doctor making $150,000 can't afford that house. He won't be allowed a mortgage. Forget the 3%, forget the 2%. What can he lay out every month? He can't. Add taxes to it? He can't. So what's going to happen fairly soon, in the next year or so probably, is many of our businesses, our hospitals, our schools and all that, who are dependent upon people traveling in that trade parade, which only gets worse as you get past the Lobster Inn Diner, they're not going to be here. I heard of a couple the other day who were talking about a new destination where life is wonderful, Kentucky. Not North Carolina, that's old hat. Florida, forget it. Kentucky's the new frontier, okay? Bring your coonskin cap and an axe, please. The point of the matter is that I'm very happy to be in a room where, as I talk about workforce housing, I'm not still in the conversion process. You guys want to do it. Now, what does that come down to, though? Land. Simple, easiest, hardest thing to find. God ain't make it anymore, and most of it's been used. And most of it is above $1 million an acre. Now, the fact you have a $250,000 a unit surplus fund is a godsend, because that's where you can start to chop down the costs of at least that one element. Everything else is going to be the same. Now, we build with modular units, which means that where we can have a project up and running in a year versus stick-built at 50% more money and an extra year, there's no time for that. And there's no money for that out of the pocket of businesses. So here's what our model is, just so you know. 47 units of 2 and 3 bedroom housing, 800 square foot 2 bedroom, 1,200 square foot 3 bedroom. Duplex units, because you have to have a certain amount of floor space. So we have our 2-story units, 2 parking spaces per unit, large septic system, recreational area, full traffic, all that kind of fun stuff. It costs us about $700,000 to build each one of those units, and that's if we don't have any more tariff increases on Canadian lumber. And just as a small thing, for some reason, Trump wants to double the cost of kitchen cabinets and bathroom vanities. I mean, it's only a couple $1,000, but it's a couple $1,000. Yeah. So right now, at today's numbers, it costs us about $700,000 plus or take. We're going to sell the 2 bedrooms at $750,000 and basically break even. And we're going to make the money up on the 3 bedrooms where we're going to sell them for about $850,000 to $900,000. In terms of that being approached by the general public in East Hampton, I cannot tell you how many people literally come up to me and say, hey, you got any units left? Hey, you got a 2 bedroom for me? You got a 3 bedroom for me? We're not going out there and knocking on doors all that much, but we already have about 90 units asked for. Now, we are also in the process, don't tell anybody this, by the way. We have another piece of property that could yield 80, and we're looking for an AHO for it. Now, that's the biggest hurdle that any municipality is going to have to come to, which is the fact that if you're not dealing with a piece of property that already has an affordable designation, you have to get that first. Town of East Hampton, that means the town board votes on that first. That, of course, means you have to give them almost all the nuts and bolts it takes to see what this could be before they'll even allow you to make the application. That, of course, gives the opportunity for people, and there are still some people who do not necessarily love having dense housing, to interject, to make their voices known. So, in our case, we think we have a clear path towards the second workforce housing project. What you need to do, basically speaking, is exactly what you guys are doing here, which we've yet to really come to in East Hampton, which is to basically have a consensus and an all-hands-on workforce housing program. That is to say, get the biggest table you can find, invite everybody, get a lot of cups of coffee, a lot of pencils, a lot of pads, a zoning map of the entire town of Southampton, so you can begin to inventory every possible piece of property that's out there, and start to focus on what is possible. We all know the demand is there. Usually when you build something, I don't care whether it's a pencil or an apartment, the first thing you ask yourself is, am I going to buy this stuff? Am I going to go to the trouble of all of this? Well, guess what? They're waiting for you. Matter of fact, they've been waiting so long. One of the biggest issues we have is the fact that there are people who are so disappointed, so distressed, so cynical, and so jaundiced about even hearing about affordable housing, because they've been hearing it for 10, 20, 30 years. And quite frankly, they're done. They don't want to hear one more promise of a 5-year study that's going to maybe do something for their grandkids, because their kids already left town because they can't afford to live here, right? So you guys are in a fantastic place in the sense that you seem to have the esprit de corps to want to tackle this. And as far as, with no, being as deferential as I can be, we found that a code that in our case that was written in 1984 doesn't help us. We found that we have to look at things in today's viewpoint. We have to see today's needs. We have to go beyond the point of some people who have said for 70 years, development is a bad idea. Well, that's usually somebody who owns a house, okay? No offense. I mean, the point of the matter is that, Curtis is shaking his head there. The point of the matter is that you have got the time, the opportunity, and apparently you have the groundswell that you need to carry you through making choices that can be made quickly about where you can do something. Any changes you need in the code, get them done if they need to be done. Recognize the issue, seize the opportunity before we're all left on an island with no rowboats and nobody here to help us out. So I'm just trying to tell you, don't think that it's complicated. I'm not saying it's not complicated, but we put together a team. I have a group called the East End Housing Initiative, which is my team of attorneys, Chris Kelly, modular builders, contractors, you name it, who are ready to work with anybody who wants to do one of these things, to the very least show them what they have to do, what the nuts and bolts are, what the costs are. And I am very happy to share that information with anybody who wants to know about it, and any help that we can be, happy to do it.
Great. Well, thank you very much. That's very helpful. Anybody, Ed, would like to come to the mic and share thoughts? Yes, please, sir. Come up. Please introduce yourself and please speak right into the mic. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Nick Palumbo. I live at 380 Hill Street in Southampton. I have no expertise in workforce housing, but I've lived in this community my entire life, and I've seen the changes in the fabric of this community, due largely in part to increased property values and the reduction in the amount of people who live here on a year-round basis, and our workforce, quite frankly, being forced to move to other areas where housing is more affordable. Again, I have no expertise in this area, but I'm happy to say I have a solution to this problem. And this is something that came to my attention recently that I felt compelled to come and share with this group today. If not the entire answer, I think this is a very interesting approach which has a lot of relevance to our situation here in Southampton. And it comes out of a community that has a lot of similarities to Southampton, which is Vail, Colorado. This program is called the Vail Indeed program, and right in the name, Indeed has to do with the deed restrictions that this program allows the community to put on properties. And I'm just going to read to you from this document, which I brought copies of to share with whoever's interested. It describes Vail with total area of less than 5 square miles, hemmed in by rugged mountains. Vail has limited housing capacity within its boundaries and has long struggled to maintain a supply of workforce housing for its year-round residents and seasonal workforce. As is common in many popular resort destinations, the town's permanent resident and workforce population is forced to compete with wealthy tourists in the housing market. So essentially what this program does is it allows the town to purchase deed restrictions from homeowners and developers to permanently limit the occupancy of a given unit to individuals who are employed in the local area. And so the beauty of this idea is that all of the existing housing stock in the town could potentially be workforce housing. It goes into
understand. Sorry.
Okay, so a deed restriction is provided by the town to a property owner, and it limits the resale of that property to someone who works in the community.
Why would an owner do that?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because, well, I could tell you of one location and one person who would be interested in applying to this program. It provides them an incentive, a financial incentive, to reduce the value of their property inherently. And the way it's described here, it says, although the agreement does not limit the resale price or rent that the owner may seek, the occupancy requirement effectively shrinks the market of buyers by tying the asking price to local wages. I mean, does this make sense to other people? It took me a while to wrap my head around it, but the more I think about it and the more I hear this conversation that's taking place, I think this would work very well here.
The owner gets paid to
Exactly.
give that.
I mean, we have a long history.
We have that program under CHF.
That's right. We have a long history of doing that in this area. We're doing it for preservation of open space with the Community Preservation Fund. It's the same idea applied to workforce housing. So you're reducing the resale value of the property. You're receiving a financial incentive to do that. But, and just to read some more details here, the program purchases deed restrictions at between 15 and 20% of a given property's fair market value. And as a result, the town gains a unit of workforce housing that it does not need to develop, manage, or maintain. So I think it's pretty straightforward in its intent and effectiveness. And they've reported a lot of success in doing this.
What's the benefit to the owner to?
Well, you're paid to do it.
Yeah, okay.
So you basically what they talk about. And again, I'm going to share this. I can't explain this in probably the detail that needs explaining, but again, in thinking about this for a while now, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I would like to share this with others so that they can review it and tell me where there's flaws in the logic here. But
So if you're an owner and and 72% of the owners are weekenders or live somewhere else, right? That owner has a house that's worth $3 million, and then he sells, then the town pays this guy $500,000 in cash up front, but then that owner can no longer use the home and
he can use
must
the home.
rent it.
He can use the home if he lives and works here.
Yeah, but 72% don't
Okay.
or live here.
Well, I'm one of the 30% or the 28% who lives and works in the community.
So where are you
And
going
I
to live?
have-
Where are you going to live if you receive the money and
I can sell the house.
It's just a
I can
sentence.
sell the house, or I can pass it, which is what I intend to do, to my children, who now live in California and in Brooklyn because they can't afford to live here. My youngest daughter is a teacher in California, who would love to come back here and teach in Southampton schools, like my wife did. She was a volunteer in the local ambulance when she was in high school. She'd be a great member of this community, but she could never afford to buy a home here on a teacher's salary. I could pass the house to her if my wife and I moved to Spain or when we die, and she could inherit the home and live in it. When she goes to sell it,
right,
the covenant transfers with her,
right.
transfers to her in the inheritance of the property, or if I sold it to her at some reduced value. But
Okay.
the restriction stays in place.
Got it.
Does that
Great. Well, thank you.
explain some of the questions?
So we have a little bit of a different program under CHF, similar to that, because I did a lot of research and I am familiar with that program in Vail, Colorado. So one of the things that I worked on in developing with that program, because I felt the same way that a lot of people I'm hearing in the audience saying that this doesn't work. One of the things that we developed was a workforce housing program where if you decide to rent your home or rent your apartments out at the affordable rent amount, CHF will come in and pay the difference between the affordable rent and what the market rent is. Okay, so that's a similar program, but the property has to be covenant. There's a covenant that's placed on the property that it has to be rented or used for the workforce.
And that covenant exists in perpetuity. So regardless of how many times the home is sold, the deed restriction stays in place, similar to what CPF does with open space, right? That open space can't be developed at any point in the future because the deed carries it, even if it transfers ownership.
Good. Thank you for that. Anybody else would like to? Thank you very much. Anybody else in the audience? I see Trustee Roy Stevenson in the back. Would you like to give us a few thoughts? Come to the mic and tell us what you think. And Trustee Simeoni is next, so you can prepare yourself.
Thank you, Michelle. Fascinating discussion. Thanks to the Planning Commission for putting this together. I think this evolved out of the board's review of, as the mayor spoke, about the possibility of changing the zoning code in an underused or underdeveloped area of the village, if you can call it that, in the North Main Street area, and seeing if we might add additional workforce housing there. And as we began discussing it, it was clear that we really needed to, as this gentleman said, get the biggest table possible and get as many people involved as possible to address this on a much larger scale than perhaps we were considering just for that area of the village. And the one thing we did not want to do, it was very clear as we began talking about it, was open up an area to development that would simply lead to the creation of an insignificant amount of workforce housing units and yet a larger number of luxury or current housing that's being built in the village. So as Jay said, the one thing we don't need more of in the village is a lot more of that. We need more workforce housing. So we want to make sure that whatever assets we had in terms of developable area to create workforce housing, we got the maximum benefit out of it, and not just one or two units, which really weren't going to move the needle at all. I own a business in Southampton. All of my people come from west of the highway, except for one person who happens to be fortunate enough to have an apartment in the village on the second floor of one of our buildings. And as was pointed out in the discussion on Thursday, this is a three-pronged problem. We have traffic, we have a sewer issue, and we have a workforce housing issue. And all of them work together because there is more potential for additional apartments for workforce people in the village to live if we got a sewer system and were allowed to create some of the vacant second floor buildings in the village and turn them into apartments. Right now that cannot happen because the Suffolk County Board of Health won't allow one more septic system to be put in the village. We have to get a sewer system. So that would be a great development. And the traffic, as we're talking about, all these people are coming from west of the highway. If they could live in the village or live nearby in the village, certainly we could reduce perhaps some amount of traffic. So it's a three-pronged problem, big problem. Need a global approach to it, not just a sort of a nitpicking approach. So I'm very pleased to have this discussion today, and do my best as part of the Board of Trustees to take this input and to do something worthwhile with it.
Great. Thank you very much, Trustee Stevenson. Trustee Simeoni.
Thank you, Michelle. I'll be brief. First of all, I think we should commend the mayor for bringing a proposal to the board to create affordable housing or workforce housing in the office district. I think this is a very important development, something that we've been looking for a long time. My first reaction when it was proposed, though, since it was only 25% workforce housing, was why not 100%? I mean, if we do 25% or 50%, basically we are inviting developers to develop luxury housing, where they can maximize their profit, and leave the crumbs for workforce housing. And not only that, but the proposal did not specify gross floor area, but units, which means maybe you can do, if it's 25%, 4 units at 2,000 square feet and 1 unit at 500 square feet, and that makes the 25%. So I think we should also look at this from a square footage area. That is, if we're talking about something less than 100%, let's talk about gross floor area so that we're specific in what is really being developed. But in my opinion, the only way to do this, and since financing is available and we have organizations such as the Southampton Housing Authority and this gentleman who is very interested in 100% workforce housing, let's not develop more luxury housing, which would be for part-timers, but let's just make this code 100% workforce housing, and let's get the work done. We need 100%, and if we can start with the office district, I think that's a wonderful idea. Again, I want to commend the mayor for bringing the proposal forward, but also let's look at other places where we can do this. Let's get serious about it. We need workforce housing. We need people who live and work here and sustain the local economy and the local services. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Simeoni. Thank you very much. Yes, please come to the mic.
Hi, Susan Hobdesvin. I've been an owner in the village since 1997, a realtor for 24 years. I have a question because I don't understand this. If we had sewage, could these vacant buildings like the old post office, the bank next door, and now Rite Aid, is there a possibility if we had sewage that those vacant properties, which have been like that for years, not Rite Aid, but will be vacant for a long time, is there a possibility for them to be rezoned and make something out of something that already exists?
Yes. Trustee Simeoni?
Okay.
I think that's an excellent observation. I mean, these are properties that right now are not being developed, probably not only because the businesses cannot sustain them, but they cannot be converted because of the septic system. But, you know, there are, apart from doing a centralized septic system that we've been talking about, there's such a thing as a package system that can be geared for the specific location. What a package system is an underground sewage treatment that only treats the effluent and not the sewage itself, and the sewage then can be pumped out. But you can make it so that it can be applied for these properties and then developed for multifamily use. The same system can also be used for the village itself. It's a simpler system. You can treat up to 200,000 gallons of water, just like a central system. It's underground. You won't even see it. The piping is smaller. You don't have to tear up all the roads like you would do for a central system. So let's look at that system for the village, but at least it can be applied even for these properties that you're talking about so that we can actually develop them. I think that's a great idea, great observation.
Thank you. Yes, please.
That's a really good idea. Again, I'm from East Hampton. I know Southampton a little bit, not as much. But if you're talking about Rite Aid and what was the bank across the street, that area, you might think about acquiring all of them as a unified property and using one best system on a small-scale basis for that specific use. Again, we have 47 apartments that produce 12,000 gallons per day, right? I doubt that would be much more over there if you could squeeze 50 apartments in over there on those properties. I don't know about your local zoning, so.
I believe the health department has tapped that type of major system, and what they'll do is like mini hydro systems per unit, where you do 8 off, so you can do multiple units.
Right.
Or a Fuji system where you could do 4 or 5 units per. So you have series of those as operating for the individual units, but I don't think you would be able to cluster.
Can't get away with that, huh?
Well, you can ask.
You could ask.
Yeah.
You could always ask.
They did it at Canoe Place Inn.
Okay, but because they're pushing the village of Southampton to have a sewer district, first of all, I have to also ask, is Southampton Village pro-housing?
No, not yet. No.
Okay, that's first and foremost.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay.
Get to the mic. Get to the mic.
Yes. All right, so for the first part of that, there's downtown infrastructure money and revitalization money from the state. First and foremost, you would it's not necessary now, but will be over the course of the next year, is to designate the village of Southampton as pro-housing. When you
Pro, P-R-O?
pro-housing.
In favor of.
in favor of. We can talk about the process. Get in touch with the individuals where you can start registering. As first thing is a letter of intent that you wish to become pro-housing. You submit that, and then you go forward with the initial application. That opens you up for state funding. And then you'll be able to have downtown revitalization money and other funding, which will help out with the sewer and all infrastructure that's necessary to create some of the sewer district.
Thank you.
And the town of East Hampton is a pro-housing town.
Yes.
Rob, yes, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, Susan Hoftisman. So, from Southampton Village. So now I want to put my realtor hat on. At any given time, there are hundreds of houses for sale. And there are many people that can't sell their house, and there are many buyers that can't afford to buy a house. Is there a program that could be developed where the funding from these transactions goes towards purchasing that property and reselling it back at maybe 50 cents on the dollar, so that somebody who wants to buy that house has a chance to? Now, you'd have to try it out, right? And it's just a drop in the bucket. But those scenarios are out there. There are people that need to get out of this area. They've aged out, or there are just various reasons why they have to go, but they can't sell their house all over the town. And if maybe that program, we tried that, and then individuals who were very handy, who could fix things, they might see certain properties and see the vision in that. So it isn't something you could do on a widespread, but maybe there are a couple of homes that you could purchase and see, if that would work.
Kara Gibson Homes.
Okay, so I appreciate that. A program like that would be difficult, right? Because now you're looking at probably losing at least $1 million a home. When you look at what is the maximum sales price of an affordable home? Right now, it's $535,000. The median sales price of a home in the town of Southampton is now $2 million. So every single home, we don't have that much money. We're not CPF, we're CHF, and we only get 0.5%, where CPF gets 2%. So we don't have that much money where we can lose at $1 million or more on a single home to then resell it. So what I was going to say is we do have other programs like the down payment assistance program, other programs that can help make a home affordable. But that particular one is pretty difficult, when you're talking about that much money, that many millions of dollars.
I think there are a lot of houses that are not $2 million, and they're under $1 million.
So the vision that we've been doing so far, when we find a parcel, which I get a phone call probably once a day from a realtor where there's an opportunity. For example, in North Sea, we had a parcel which right on the corner of North Sea, Mecox, and Major's Path, where the home was for sale. It's just under 3 acres. And we looked at the parcel and said, well, it's a little expensive, needs a lot of work, it's definitely a tear down. However, we're able to get 4 units on that site. Now we're able to get 4 units, almost half acre each, on the site to be able to accommodate first-time home buyers. What we're going to do is put those 4 units, but now to keep the affordability, we're going to keep the land. Meaning the housing authority, our entity, our vision now is we're going to hold the land and we're going to either have it as a co-op, a condo, or a PUD, whatever ownership opportunity. That does 2 things. One, gives me oversight to make sure the land is maintained, make sure the property is being maintained properly, make sure that lawns are being cut and garbage are being removed and people are operating it properly. But it also takes the portion of home ownership, which is the most expensive, the land cost, takes it out of the equation, and now we're just looking at the improvements. Now I'm able to sell those homes for $350,000 each. So to get a 3-bedroom, 2-car garage on almost a half acre over in North Sea, it works. Those are the things that I would like to talk about with regards to the village, looking at opportunities like that, where we have somewhere we can put a little density. But the biggest issue I think the community always has is when we say affordability or affordable housing. Oh no, it's going to be one of those projects. Who and what's going to be a part of that environment? But when you have oversight, when you have someone that's accountable to ensure that they're being maintained and managed properly, I think the community is more supportive of that type of deal, and therefore we can be able to not only have the community support, but also look at additional funding from state, from county, from the Community Housing Fund, and be able to use a cross-funding of all that to accomplish the goal.
And include the septic too.
And there's funding for the septic. I'll go to that too. With the village, why are we not putting an application in the budget year of next year for CPF to pay for a portion of downtown the sewer district? There should be a combination of state and county as well as the town funding to be able to accommodate this. It's an expensive cost.
The village is not yet dealing with the financing. The village is dealing with trying to find a place to put the plant.
Understood.
And has been looking for 25 years.
I know.
Location.
May I just?
Yes, Rob.
Rest assured that as the work goes on, CPF will be, we hope, in every scenario that the sewer task force is looking at, an important partner and a funding partner for land to make a sewer system work. So that's an ongoing dialogue, and the intent is there definitely. One of the things I guess I wanted to ask, I just wanted to clarify, Kara, with you, all the programs for the town CHF would be available here in the village to owners and residents here in the village. You don't have to be in the incorporated town, and you can be in the village. We pay those taxes and transfers in as well.
Correct. Also, the village did opt in to CHF back in 2022 right away. So the village is also eligible for funding.
Yeah. One of the things that, first of all, I think there's a sense from a lot of people that for wherever we can get housing nearby, in the town, in the village, in East Hampton town, anywhere east of the canal, is going to help not only the whole region, but frankly for traffic issues, for people like me who live in in the western part of Southampton Village. Any workforce housing east of the canal is going to start chipping away at the commute that helps really provide the mass volume in that bell curve of traffic. But I just wanted to share with this group that at a seminar I was at many years ago, Paul Pontieri, who's the mayor of Patchogue, which has gone through, in fact, they've gone through such a successful revitalization that by many accounts, including his own at times, they've overheated and they've had to curb some things back and they've introduced some problems from growth. But that wasn't the case 22 years ago when they began their revitalization. And one of the things that he said, he was asked in this seminar I went to, what was the most important thing in the whole process of getting this revitalization going? And he said, it's surprising to think now, because it sounds like a drop in the bucket, is getting the first 25 to 40 people living downtown where they could live and work and walk. And it was just honestly their presence on the street that made the village and the blocks in the middle of downtown look alive again. And businesses who saw 2 customers a day were seeing 10 customers a day, and the business owners started thinking, well, maybe there's an opportunity here, maybe I'll reinvest in my business, maybe I will add that other employee, and it became this upward spiral. But he said it was remarkable how few people it took in the downtown in the off season, because they have some seasonality too, to change the whole vibe of that village. So to me, whatever solution, any housing is great, but to all of the fellow trustees' points and the leadership from Bill Manger on this, getting something that will allow some workforce housing in walking distance to downtown, to me, is one of the priorities. Because of this effect that Paul Pontieri has mentioned. And a number of mayors who were on this panel chimed in and said the same thing. They hadn't really thought about it, but had a big impact on just the zeitgeist of their villages and their municipalities and the look and feel of the village.
Great. Thank you, Rob. Anybody else would like to come to the mic? Yes? Please. Please speak into the microphone and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Lori Tutt. Going off what you just said of the look and feel of Southampton Village, I think you guys need to look
I'm sorry,
at
can
this.
you introduce yourself?
Lori Tutt. Thank you. I think you guys need to look at this as a whole project of how you want the village to look and feel. If you're going to litter Hampton Road with apartments, it's going to look heinous. It's going to look absolutely awful. It's a travesty, I think, that you guys want to push people into apartment living. They should be really on their own private property. They shouldn't be forced into unsustainable apartment living, right? They can't do anything for themselves. And then on top of that, it's just an absolutely horrible investment for these people to go into affordable housing, right? They can't make any money.
That's not true.
Come on, Curtis.
No. Under our program, there is allowed appreciation on each one of the parcels. It's not stagnant at the level of price.
And so as somebody that's been in the banking business, you would advise someone to take that money, that investment money, and put it into affordable housing and not go put it in the stock market? It's ridiculous.
If they need a place to stay, yes.
That's
just from an economical standpoint, not everyone can invest in the stock market.
No, I'm just talking about taking that chunk of money that you're putting into something.
Sorry, if we want to have a dialogue, we must be both at the mic. So you state your point and then he'll respond.
Yeah, that's fine. Anyway, it's not a good investment. You're taking the people that really shouldn't be investing. Put it this way. Most of us, our biggest investment is our homes, right? And so particularly for these people that are at the bottom, I guess you want to call it, there's not going to be any generational wealth being made here for these people. It's sad. I much rather see them in smaller houses on their own private property than being stuck in cement blocks in buildings. And nothing should be 100%. Nothing at all should be 100% affordable housing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Curtis, do you want to respond to that? At the mic? Briefly.
As a father of 2 children who were graduates of Southampton Town, Southampton School District, both of them have degrees. My daughter graduated from Villanova and is going for her master's in Tufts for psychology. Neither one of my children can afford to stay and live here and buy a dream that you're speaking of. They don't have the resources right now to put into the stock market because they have to obviously establish themselves before they can get there. What we need to do is save our treasures, our youth, our people who live in this community, who were born in this community, and stop them from leaving and hemorrhaging in other communities where that asset is being utilized. We almost lost my daughter to Pennsylvania. We got her back here. I'm not going to let her go. Problem is that she can never live in anything I build because of the conflict of interest. So I need another builder. Come and build something so they can get the kids out of my basement. But all jokes aside, we need housing to establish their budget so that they can save the money to invest in a future base. But now they're not. Unfortunately, they don't have the means to do so.
Thank you, Curtis.
Kind of build on that, Curtis, if you don't mind. One more quick. So just to kind of build on that, one of the reasons why we do cap rents is because the rents out here are not affordable, right? So somebody who is living in a rental unit cannot save the money to buy a home. The rents are just too high. So we have to keep the rents affordable. Not everybody wants or can live in a single family dwelling. Some people need or want to live in an apartment unit where there's not a lot of maintenance or not a lot of upkeep to it. And we have to keep those rents affordable so that they can, when they're ready to go into a single family home, they can save the money for a down payment to do so at that time.
Thank you, Kara.
And just a couple of things. First of all, single-family homes are simply more expensive to build than attached homes by about 30% or so, and that counts. Second of all, in our projects, we've made our project affordable because the rent that we can charge, or that the owner, let's say Southampton Hospital buys a unit, If they have a two-bedroom unit, the most they can charge is $2,200 a month. And that's an aggregate. If there were 4 nurses in there, they're each responsible for 1/4 of $2,200 a month. If it's a 3-bedroom unit, they have 6, which was an exception we were given by the town, and they can only be charged $3,300 a month. Needless to say, right now in East Hampton, it costs $2,000 to rent a room in a house that has 2 other bedrooms and 3 families living in that house. And for the people in that economic bracket, that's about all they got. Now, when it comes to the affordability of the project itself, that's a very important thing to pay attention to. I insisted that after you bought a unit, A, you can't flip it, B, you have to sell it to somebody else who is exactly the same as you. And second of all you get is CPI. All right. Now, CPI, okay, 3%, 4%, 5%. It's not the 12% that the open market is getting right now. But if the open market starts at $1.2 million and you're down here around $750,000, 5 years from now, $1.2 million is going to be $1.7 million. But you're going to be $875,000. You've made money, you've gathered equity, but you still have to respect the fact that you've been given basically a gift by the towns using a code to create something that you can actually afford to live in. So you got to have a balancing act between the people inside who are paying for it, the people who are putting the money up front, what are they going to get out of it when the time comes, and mix and match those things so that everybody's got a fair shake. So that's how we see it.
Can you stay at the mic? One more question. I have a question for you. Explain something to me. When you force somebody to do 10% workforce housing in a project development, or 25%, or 50%, or 100%, I would assume that the profitability of the project goes down in a linear fashion, i.e., if you're a developer and you pay in the village $2 million for an acre, no, for a half acre, actually, that's around here. It's $4 million an acre, right? Yeah. Okay. So these properties we're discussing, the Rite Aid, the old post office, the bank, etc. Let's say each of them is 2 acres, 3 acres, something like this. Yeah. How much, you know?
Maybe 3/4 of an acre.
That's it?
The Southampton Press property is 1.1.
Okay, so they're all, let's say they're 1 acre each to make it simple.
$2,750,000.
Right, just for the land, because it's a tear down, right?
Yeah.
But okay, so if you're a developer and you look at this amount of money for the land, and you say, I can build luxury homes or luxury condos, or if I build something, the village is going to force me to, well, Long Island 10%, but the village not 25% or even 50% or even 100%. Right. Isn't your profitability affected by this negatively?
Well, of course.
Massively. Naturally. So therefore, if you have 3 developers who look at this piece of land, why would anybody want, like you did, explain to me why, from a financial standpoint, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
From the financial standpoint, again, we got 4+ acres for $5 million. Yeah. When it was 8 to the unit, we weren't going to make much money at all. Yeah. When it went to 12 to the unit, we're making about 15% or so on what we're doing. Now, when you talk about $2 million for an acre of land, you're in a whole nother world. When you're talking about $4 million, the only way you could possibly do it is if you draw on this $250 each, and at least you can knock down the cost.
You have to bundle the funding, so...
No, wait. No, I'm not finished with my question. Yeah. It is $4 million. How can we discuss workforce housing in the village?
Michelle.
Please let me finish my question.
Okay, I understand.
Rob, please let me finish. We talk about workforce housing. We all want it. Yeah. But it is $4 million per acre in the village of Southampton. So how can you build workforce housing or a development if the village forces you to do 50% with very limited rent or below market rent? Is it even possible as a developer? No, please, Rob, I want to ask a developer. As a developer, are we just wasting our time here? $4 million for the land, 50% where you have very limited rent. Is it possible, or are we wasting our time?
Well, that's why the one thing you have to remember about workforce housing, it's like I'm a carpenter and I need a new hammer. Okay, the hammer cost me $15 to buy. I don't question the cost of the hammer, because without the hammer, I can't work.
We need you to speak in front of the mic.
In front of the mic.
Sorry. Workers are the hammers. How can I make sure I have a stable workforce? What is it going to cost me to have a stable workforce, and not just for today? Right now, if I go out, let's say I'm a business owner, I go out and rent a house. That's a temporary situation, fluctuating by price. Now, if I can buy something, even though it's a bit more expensive than I might want to have, knowing I'm going to be in business for the next 5 to 10 years and I can sell it at a profit, I've locked in workers that are getting impossibly scarce to get. If I'm a restaurant owner and I can house my workforce, but you can't, I'll bet you go out of business before I do. All right, because your chef ain't going to put up with it, and they're going to go someplace else where they can, or they'll just leave the area. Now, if I have the housing for these people, and yes, I can only rent it for a certain amount of money, but I can back that into compensation in some other way. You know, you can get kind of creative. There is a breaking point, though. You know, you can't charge $2 million for a workforce housing unit. All right, but if you can keep your density to at least 4 per unit, 4 per acre with your 250. Then you can start to think about maybe $2 million for a piece of property, right? If you can up your density from there and still have your subsidies, again, you get on a downward climb. But those are very tricky packages to put together. And I know the village is largely developed, and needless to say, I can't imagine any part of the village that you would call middle class per se, right? So you're going to have to, if you're going to do it in the village, you're going to have to be very specific about where you could do it, draw on the resources that the town has available for you, and find, I'll put it this way, you almost need to find a pro bono developer, basically, because you also...
That's what I don't understand.
That's
If-
I
don't get it.
You have to bundle the money. You have to bundle CHF money, you have to bundle state money, county money, and Curtis is the expert on this, and he can tell you how it's done.
Yeah, but here's the one problem about that. We are private. We're not taking any money from the town. We're not taking from the community housing fund. We're not taking from the state, because we want a project where we know who goes in the units.
So you partner with businesses.
Exactly.
And your businesses are investors. In
That's
the
right.
unit.
So,
And
as an
therefore, that
example,
$2 million
Southampton Hospital, which has a decent amount of money, has to have workers to run its business. Therefore, when we talk to the new CEO, Emily, forget her last name now, or the head of the foundation, Jim Forbes, they basically say, okay, fine, if we can get 10 or 20, we won't worry about the economics so much, because without those people, we can't run a hospital or meeting house network. So what we're doing is we're leveraging the private side of business to put up the money to create the housing that lets them be in business. It doesn't fit everybody, but it fits most people. But it's a question, of course, of cost. Where do you end up in cost? And also, how much are we willing to stick our neck out in terms of time and money? We bought the old Stearns property with only the affordable housing overlay. We didn't have any stipulations from the seller that we would have a period of time to develop the property. $5 million on the table head, we did it because we felt we could work with it, okay? Most other projects are going to ask a lot of other questions about how do we do this, where do we go, blah, 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 and they're not going to want to put down that much money to leverage the property, right? But what you can do now is you can go out and identify every vacant piece of property in the village, I'm sure. Can't be that hard. And also ones that could be reclaimed, like your bank building and things like that, and put a worksheet together. How many you got? What's it going to cost you? How much money can you front? Stay away from state funds, no offense, okay? And also survey your business community to make sure you have people. We have 47 units and we have 95 people lined up, and we haven't asked a lot of people. And that's in East Hampton, which of course is a much smaller place. You certainly have that many folks here, so you want to put your people in order, make sure they know what they're getting into, make them, you can't sell anything until you have a preliminary approval, you can't do an AG offer or any of that fun stuff. So just put all the pieces together, because right now you're transparent. We had to be somewhat a little stealthy dealing with the town. You're right here. You've decided you want to do this. So inventory the land, figure out the costs. If you can't do it, you can't do it. But at least try to build a model of some kind that will give you a chance to get off the starting block and do your first project.
Thank you, thank you. Is there anybody else, before we wrap up, who has not yet spoken? Please.
Mackie Finnerty, Southampton Village. I was quite shocked to hear the description of Hampton Road. those of you who have lived here any amount of time would know that just a few years ago, it was all farms down on the East End, and it's now all apartment buildings. I don't know anybody who thinks that's ugly in there. And it's valuable, it's beautiful, and it was pretty shocking when it first happened. And now it's just filled, and it's very, very desirable. Everybody's dying. I think initially it was to be for local people. Now I think, unfortunately, a lot of city people in there. But to say that you take property and you put them in townhouses and stuff is ugly is sort of incredible to me. And you know what happened right by the village. Those are all commercial buildings. I understand a lot of them are vacant. You can have, I don't know, again, it's a zoning issue, but what they call mixed use. I mean, I have a relative who's in the building business, and everything they do is what they call mixed use. It's stores, it's apartments, it's offices, all in the same buildings in very nice towns in the United States. So this idea that we don't have the imagination to put this together, the very buildings that are there, it was vacant from CVS all the way to the next road, has been vacant for years and years and years, and it all could have been in housing. Finally, Wells Fargo and one realtor has gone in there. I don't know how that's going to work. That all could have been housing right in town. Nice. Yeah, the buildings aren't that gorgeous right now. I think they could make a big improvement on them if you put in some nice multi-use housing there. So I think we need to look more broadly, and it's that same thing, you know, like, well, people like that, they must live in ugly housing. No, they don't have to live in ugly housing. All those buildings along North Sea, as well as Hampton Road, could be a lot of housing for the village. And I hope that you will consider it, and that I know you don't think it's going to be ugly, but the attitude about that, you know, the sort of not in my backyard for those people, that's not good for us. And the idea that the goal of Southampton Village is to make sure that people live here, that can build a big stock fund. I mean, where did that come from? It always was a mixed village of people with money and people who served those people, but they were able to live in the town then. And it would be awfully nice if they could again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Before we wrap up, anybody else would like to intervene? We're done for the day.
Michelle, I had my hand up.
Oh, I didn't see you, Jacob. Go ahead.
Curtis, brilliant move in your elucidation. We would be delighted to help out with the not-for-profit I'm involved with in penciling in the hard and soft costs, as well as the package type septics that we can do in different pockets of the village, so we can get the show on the road with workforce housing that we've been talking for the last 25 years. So it's been very promising and music to my ears, that's for sure.
Thank you, Jacob. All right, well, Alex Wallach, yes, coming from the rear.
Just a quick comment to piggyback on what said. As a reminder, we in this village, we have a board of architectural review that sits on this dais on the first and third Monday of every month, who works very hard to ensure that any new development, and even the proposal that the mayor is talking about, would be subject to architectural review, that development happens in a way that's harmonious and very respectful of the community character, so that no one should be concerned about, Soviet-style housing blocks or something like that. We're talking about, as you know, we're talking about very small units that are going to be designed to resemble single-family homes and are specifically designed to fit into the community here. And I'm going to be working with them on architectural guidelines for that.
Great. Thank you, Alex, for this. Well, thank you, everybody. It's been a productive 2 hours, and have a great weekend. Thank you.